Now, this story takes place down south. I mean, just south of here. I mean, just due south of here. There lived a frog. But this wasn't any old frog. This was a wide-mouthed frog. Now, this wide-mouthed frog lived in a big old pond his whole life. Now, he liked living in that pond, all right. There was lots of water, lots of lily pads, beautiful lily flowers, sky and clouds up ahead, lots of flies to eat. But after living in that pond for a while, that frog got kind of tired of seeing the same old things all the time. He got tired of seeing the same old sky up above and the same old clouds. He got tired of eating the same old flies. He got tired of seeing the same old grass in the meadow where his pond sat. So one day that frog decided to go on a journey to see what there was out in the world. So that frog, he hopped out of that pond, and he hopped and he hopped and he hopped all afternoon until he got to the edge of the forest. Now, he didn't mind being at the edge of the forest, but what he did mind is that by the time he got there, he was feeling mighty hungry. Well, he looked around to see if he could find any of those flies he was so used to eating, but he couldn't even find not a one fly. So he looked around to see if there was anyone to ask about what there was to eat around these parts, and well, he looked and he looked and he looked, and it seemed like there was nobody around. And so he looked some more, and right up above where he was sitting, right up above him, sitting in that tree, there was a critter he had never seen before in his life. Now, this critter was brown all over, had feathers. It had pointy toes and a pointy mouth, and it was sitting so still up in that tree, that little frog wasn't even sure if it was alive or not. Well, that little frog, he climbed that tree, and he scooted down that branch, and he went up to that critter, and he said, "Excuse me, but who are you, and what do you eat anyway?" "I am an owl, and I eat little rodents like mice and voles, and sometimes moles and shrews, and if I'm really lucky, I might catch a rabbit, and I eat what I want and spit out what I don't want. And who are you?" "Well, I'm a wide-mouthed frog, and thanks very much, Miss Owl, but that doesn't sound very good to me, but thanks anyway, bye." So the little frog, he scooted down that branch, he made his way down that tree, and well, there he was at the edge of the forest again, and he was even hungrier than before. So he looked around to see if there was anyone else to ask about what there was to eat around these parts, and he looked and he looked. Well, right out there, right out in the meadow, he saw another critter he had never seen before in his life. Now, this critter was brown all over too, but he knew it wasn't an owl because it didn't have those sharp talons of the owl. Couldn't see his feet, they were down in the grass, but he was pretty sure he didn't have those sharp talons. And he didn't have a hooked beak, of course, because he wasn't a bird. He had fur instead of feathers. But he had a pinkish nose, moving really quickly, and he was still sitting real still, just like the owl was. Well, that little frog, he hopped and he hopped and he hopped until he got to that critter, and he went up to that critter and said, "Excuse me, but who are you, and what do you eat anyway?" "Oh, well, I'm a rabbit, and I eat succulent greens like grass and leaves and flowers, and in the winter, when it's not of that, I eat the bark. And who are you?" "Well, I'm a wide-mouthed frog, and thanks very much, Mr. Rabbit, but that doesn't sound very good to me, but thanks anyway, bye." And so that frog, he hopped and he hopped and he hopped, looking for someone else to ask about what there was to eat around these parts, until he got to a swamp and he dove in. Felt so good to be in the water again. And he swam and he swam and he swam until he came to yet another critter he had never seen before in his life. Now, this critter was brown all over too, and it had feathers like the owl. Now, his feet were in the water. He couldn't see his feet, the frog couldn't, but he was pretty sure he didn't have those sharp talons of the owl, and he didn't have that hooked beak of the owl. In fact, he had a long, pointy beak just like that. Well, that frog, he swam up to that critter and he said, "Excuse me, but who are you and what do you eat anyway?" "I am a shorebird, a willet to be exact, and I poke my long beak into the muck and I pick out little clams and crustaceans and all sorts of little critters down there in the muck. And who are you?" "Well, I'm a wide-mouthed frog, and I like the idea of critters, but I can't get them way down there in the muck. But thanks anyway, bye." And he swam off into that swamp, looking for someone else to ask about what there was to eat around these parts. And he swam and he swam and he swam until finally he came to yet another critter he had never seen before in his life. Now, this critter was not brown. It was kind of grayish, kind of greenish. It lay flat on the ground just like that. It had a tail that lay on the ground like that and a snout that lay in the ground flat just like that. And that frog, he swam up to that critter and he said, "Excuse me, but who are you and what do you eat anyway?" "I am an alligator, and I eat wide-mouthed frogs. And who are you?" "Oh, well, actually, I'm a smallmouth frog myself, but thanks anyway. See you later, bye." And he swam 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 until he got back to his own little pond, and he had a nice meal of flies. But that little frog, he was glad he went on that journey that day, because he learned a very important lesson. And that is, as you go through life, it's important to know when to keep your wide mouth shut. And that's my story for you.